when you talk to Tesla owners, they say they're very upset because A, they can't get their car fixed. It's just way, way behind. They're not ready for this. B,
Yeah.
the guy selling the cars is gone totally right wing and they're not ready for that either. So there's an image problem. There's a I can't get my car on the road when I want to drive it problem. Tesla's really struggling through a lot of things. And that would explain missing on the top and bottom lines of earnings. But one of the complaints is that Elon Musk spends too much time on other things, largely DOGE. And so even his hint that he would step away, and you're right, we don't really know what that means, but it makes sense that that would send at least the stock price higher because that's what investors want to hear.
Hi, and welcome to the Silicon Insider podcast. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Good, Mike. Thank you.
You look like you have a day off.
Yes.
That's great. Good for you. I'm up here in Oregon, so it's a different setting for both of us. So let's fire away. It's been another crazy week on the stock market, partly because President Trump made new tariff comments late Wednesday. There were rumors that a China tariff deal was about to be decided, but apparently it hasn't. On the other hand, some stocks did real well. So the Dow's been moving up and down. This being Thursday, it's doing pretty well today. It rallied yesterday, but then closed well off the highs. Also because of Trump's comments on the China tariffs and the fact that he kind of backed off his talk about firing Powell of the Federal Reserve. Let's see. Interesting companies. IBM did real well. And Tesla, despite pretty grim quarter one earnings, it jumped 5.3% on Elon Musk claim. I won't say promise. While the other Magnificent Seven also had good levels of earnings, good stock earnings yesterday, but they're still in downtrends. And the other big winner tech was Palantir, up 7.3%. So let's get back to Tesla first. Is this just another Elon promise that will be fulfilled whenever it will? What do you think?
Sure. I had predicted that during the earning report, he would hint at stepping away from DOGE. And even the hint at him stepping away from DOGE sent shares higher. That's what people wanted to hear. One of the reasons, and there are many, the Tesla stock has slumped in the last couple of months. Certainly sales are down, but a lot of it is the reputation that Musk has now brought to the company. And that has really ticked off a lot of people who would normally buy Teslas and have decided not to or to turn theirs in. When you talk to Tesla owners, they say they're very upset because A, they can't get their car fixed. It's just way, way behind. They're not ready for this. B,
Yeah.
the guy selling the cars is gone totally right wing and they're not ready for that either. So there's an image problem. There's a I can't get my car on the road when I want to drive it problem. Tesla's really struggling through a lot of things. And that would explain missing on the top and bottom lines of earnings. But one of the complaints is that Elon Musk spends too much time on other things, largely DOGE. And so even his hint that he would step away, and you're right, we don't really know what that means, but it makes sense that that would send at least the stock price higher because that's what investors want to hear.
Well, it's kind of interesting. CEOs traditionally were all pretty conservative, and it didn't play against them that much. Is it because he's interfering in the federal government that it's causing this, or is this a new kind of way to respond to CEOs whose politics you don't like?
No, I think CEOs can be conservative, certainly. But are they responsible for hundreds of thousands of job losses? Typically, CEOs, especially the popular ones, are responsible for job growth and the growth of people's bottom lines. It doesn't really matter if you're, growing in the bottom line and you have a job, what your CEO's politics are for a lot of people. But Musk's politics are not only front and center, but they are directly responsible for wide scale layoffs and wide scale cuts in programs that people want to see. That's very unlike a CEO.
Well, I remember Al Hacksaw Dunlap, I think that was his name, who took over various companies and laid off most of the staff and set them up for being sold immediately if they're being flipped. People didn't like them, but I'm not sure anybody stopped buying that company's product or burning them.
Well,
Because they didn't, because he was laying off thousands and thousands of people.
I mean, layoffs can be popular. Intel stock is up because of news of impending layoffs. Companies like a trim bottom line.
Yeah.
Tesla did have a fairly major layoff. Its stock went up quite a bit after that. I think
Right.
the layoffs people are responding to here are the government layoffs and the government programs that Musk is cutting, programs that traditional Tesla buyers really like and really want to stick around. And so they're saying, wait a minute, this guy who is affecting my life negatively, I'm going to go buy his cars. That's where that second thought is coming in.
So, do we have any empirical data on how much that has affected the sales of Teslas? Do we have numbers on that, or do we just have a feel and we're watching on the news as, Teslas burn out there or have swastikas put on it?
Well, I mean, we have numbers that sales are down. So,
Yeah,
they've had a decade of sales to a traditional, stable audience. And that audience is the one out there, with the pitchforks outside Tesla dealerships saying,
right.
I'm getting rid of my Tesla because either I'm mad at Musk or it doesn't work or I can't get it fixed. And we're hearing all of these complaints come out of the woodwork. So I don't know if that's an empirical number, but it certainly is the core audience turning on a company because of
Right.
its leader.
Now, right before this happened, we were talking about some numbers having to do with EV sales overall slumping, and companies, basically some of the big automobile companies bailing on EVs. Is that being disguised by all of this?
Well, I think the slump in EV sales is largely because Tesla is selling fewer cars. The good news is there are more choices. And that also plays into this. I mean, Tesla is seeing competition, which Musk even remember at one point, he opened up the patents to anybody else and said, hey, you can do this. Let's go see some more EVs on the road. A
Right.
lot of the car makers were slow to put their EVs on the road. That played into Tesla's early success. Now we're seeing some quality electric cars on the road and even some trucks, and they're not making a dent in the overall EV sales, I would say, but I think they're making a dent in Tesla sales. And this comes at a good time for the Rivians and the Volvos and the BMWs of the world because people are saying, hey, there are some alternatives to this car company that I've fallen out of love with. And hopefully that will lead to more EV sales rather than less, but I just don't know. This is something of a turning point, I think, an
Yeah.
inflection point, if you will, for EV sales. I just don't know exactly where it goes from here.
Well, we'll just have to see. Okay,
Yeah.
President Trump late Tuesday said he expects China tariffs to fall substantially, and he won't play, quote, hardball with Beijing. Uh, is that a turning point? Another, position? Can we read anything in that? Uh, he also said, as I mentioned before, he won't fire Fed Chief Jerome Powell, uh, and he seemed to really back off on that one more than the other ones, like somebody had talked to him. And he's still saying there's a big opportunity for a U.S.-China trade deal, but full agreement could take years. And I noticed China's been utterly intransigent on this. They haven't backed off a bit, while we have. What do you make of all this?
I mean, you said it. Trump is saying one thing and doing another thing. He's saying one thing, and the White House is putting out a statement that contradicts it. It's a little strange.
Yeah.
The Jerome Powell back off was, I think, something that investors wanted to hear. Trump said, I want to get rid of Jerome Powell. And then the stock market tanked. And then he said, well, the media made that up, even though we all heard him say it and saw
Yeah.
him post it. But he said, I don't want to get rid of Jerome Powell. And that sent the markets back up. He said on Wednesday, I believe, we've got a deal with China. And the market was up about 1,000 points. And by the end of the day, the White House had said, there's no deal. And the market was up about 300, but not 1,000. So we're still seeing the back and forth, the roller coaster, if you will, on the stock market because of what President Trump and even the White House are saying about tariffs. I think the market wants to see some semblance of just, I don't know, consistency on this tariff issue. And so far, we haven't seen it.
And he said he's going to set new tariff rates on China in 2 to 3 weeks. Does
That's
that
the
mean
sound of me saying, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, we really haven't seen anything in terms of an agreement yet, but even the hint of one, I think, is giving investors some optimism. And that's why we've seen, for a few days here, the market rise, but there's no deal in place yet, at least as you and I are speaking right now. But I wouldn't put anything past this administration. It's gone back and forth so many times.
Yeah, and I think on the Jerome Powell thing, I think that, he keeps saying, well, he's here for Main Street, not for Wall Street. But I think Wall Street had a little talk with the administration that firing a federal, I mean, it's happened before many times, but firing a guy, and I'm no great fan of Jerome Powell, but firing a guy at this moment just seems crazy.
Well, because we have a market and a country that is desperate for some sort of stability and consistency.
Yeah.
And there's nothing less stable than firing. And I don't know that he has the authority to do that, but trying to get rid of an independent leader who has a lot of respect. And
Right.
that is Jerome Powell.
Especially a guy that's pointing out some problems in the administration and the possible impact of all this. I'm sure he'd like to, and I'm sure this thing about, oh no, I'm not really going to do it. I'm not sure that's his feelings, but I'm glad it hasn't happened, even though, the Fed has been mostly ineffectual through all of this. It's always been a day late and a dollar short, but at least it's stability. We all look to it. I mean, we all cheer when interest rates go up and down, even though there's pretty good evidence. Doesn't have that much effect. That the impact has already occurred. At least we feel better when the Fed says something. Okay, let's go on to Zuckerberg, but the Mark Zuckerberg antitrust trial. This has gotten really interesting. Apparently, well, basically, Kevin Systrom, who was one of the co-founder of Instagram, gave testimony swearing that he believes that Mark Zuckerberg stifled Instagram because after he bought it, because he prefers Facebook, because it's his baby, and he swore that he had no agenda when he was buying Instagram, but everything afterwards suggests that, not giving it all the tools available, not supporting it in such a way that Facebook essentially stifled Instagram from a success, which is bizarre because Instagram now generates more advertising dollars per user than Facebook does. Are you keeping up with all this? And have you come up with any conclusions on what's going on?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of the testimony from Instagram and WhatsApp, I mean, it is sour grapes, and I don't mean that in a negative or derogatory way. It's them saying we might have made a bad move, not a bad deal. They got really, 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 really wealthy by selling out to Facebook.
Well,
It's
sure that
arguably it's arguable, it's almost certain that they wouldn't have gotten anywhere near as wealthy by not selling to Facebook.
Right.
And this really all comes down to money. I mean, Zuckerberg's moves have been in many ways predatory, in many ways somewhat monopolistic. And so it's not a surprise that the FTC is taking him on because he's doing things and has done things right under their nose as if to say, hey, you know, nah, I can do this because I'm big and everybody loves Instagram and WhatsApp. And so I think this could be a comeuppance. We've got a pretty strong, pretty aggressive FTC in place. And I don't know where this goes. It's interesting because the stock price in the last few days of Meta has gone back up.
Yeah.
And after getting hit with, the whole tariff downturn. And I wonder if that's people thinking we may see a spinoff here, a spinoff of Instagram and or WhatsApp. And spinoffs, breakups tend to be really, really good for investors. And so
Yeah.
I wonder if people are playing this right now thinking there's going to be a price to pay. And it may not just be dollars and cents. It may be an actual breakup of this company. And that would be good for shareholders and good for competition. So I think the FTC is gunning for something like that.
Well, Instagram can make the case that it's a huge success.
Right.
And, if they claimed that they were being suppressed a little bit by the parent company, in order for Facebook to keep more of a monopoly, or that Instagram was basically being put at the service of expanding Facebook's user base, that's a pretty good argument for breaking it up, for detaching Instagram. Meanwhile, by the way, Zuckerberg's lawyers are trying to make the case that what it really fears is its biggest rival, TikTok, though, apparently Meta makes twice as much per user as TikTok does. So is it a threat? Is it a direct threat at all? Or is just the legal team at Meta trying to create a boogeyman to fight this idea that they're a monopoly?
I mean, I'd say TikTok is a threat. I think that Facebook itself has lost a lot of young users, and that's where Instagram comes in. And Instagram and Facebook combined have lost a lot of users to TikTok. But, it's not a complete monopoly. There are other choices. But has it acted monopolistic? Yeah. Has it bullied other competition and put them out of business? Yes. And so I'm not sure exactly what the FTC is going for here, but it seems the combination of Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram and the, super aggressive tactics that Zuckerberg has taken is kind of a toxic mix that has A, made Zuckerberg very unpopular, B,
Yeah.
made him extremely wealthy, and C, put him in the targets of the federal government.
There was a little thing that came out during all this, based upon some conversations that Zuckerberg had with his people. And one of them had to do that was that he wanted to try to break the Dunbar number. Now, people don't know what that is. It's the idea there are certain numbers that crop up in humanity, and they have from forever. I mean, the size of a military platoon is the same as the number of people that you can know personally in a village, on and on. And the Dunbar number for basically for social networks is 150. You really can't know well more than 150 people that you would recognize and all of that. And Zuckerberg said he wanted to expand that number. He wanted to change his Dunbar number because Facebook users typically now had about 150 connections, and he wanted to essentially train human brains to manage even more social interactions than ever before. Now, that's arrogant. I mean, he literally
Yes.
wanted to change human nature.
Right. And that's all ambitious and kind of strange at the same time.
Why is he always kind of strange in that regard?
Yeah, I don't know, but you can really trace his actions and Meta's actions to making money at this point and expanding, yeah, and expanding the company's reach. And it could be that the government is going to say it was monopolistic and anti-trade. Who knows?
Yeah, but by the way, the final, maybe his epitaph will be in all of this is what he said in 2012, we have no agenda. I
And
thought
that
you,
has changed too, clearly.
I thought you'd appreciate that quote.
I think it was true back then, perhaps, but now it's not true. He's clearly trying to get in with the Trump administration, not very successfully, clearly, but that's
Yeah.
what he's trying to do. And he's doing it at the expense of young users. He's doing it at the expense of truth on his platform. And he's doing it at the expense of keeping, dangerous material off his platform.
Right. Okay, so let's look. By the way, Meta is in the news also for another thing. The European Union has now fined Apple and Meta a combined $797 million in its first enforcement of its landmark digital competition law. That's not a lot of money, but sitting behind it is this trying to, well, I think in this case, Meta makes a good point that Europe is trying to change the business model of giant American corporations, tech corporations. And this is just kind of a little sting to start the ball rolling on forcing these companies to change how they do business in Europe and do it permanently. Do you feel that way, or is just Europe being Europe, and they're always resentful of big U.S. companies, and they take any chance they can to, slam them?
Right. We've seen this kind of action for 20 years pretty consistently. And I think that is how the EU feels about some of these big companies because they're a little more willing to protect their users. And so they sort of feel like, hey, these guys are coming in using these arrogant tactics, and we're going to find them if they want to do business in our backyard. And they've been doing that for 20 years. And it really hasn't affected the companies and what they do or how they do business. And so they've gotten so big and rich that, who knows if they're too big to fail, but they're too big to fine and have it really make a difference.
Yeah. And the people of, the European population seems to enjoy, Apple products and, their Instagram and Facebook. I mean, they seem to be voting with their feet no matter what the EU, commission decides to do.
Right. When it comes to young people, and we do these stories on Meta and privacy and Apple and all that, and they're not really worried about privacy. But then again, they're not thinking, hey, how come so many of my friends are feeling depressed or bullied at school?
Yeah.
And, I read books. There are a lot of people out there that say there's a direct correlation. So, this is something that people need to look at. And I understand why these companies are in the spotlight so much.
Yeah. Okay. Here, now, Microsoft, I'm sure you covered this one. Microsoft has announced new performance policies aimed to accelerate high performance and swiftly address low performance. Boy, that's a loaded phrase right there. Basically, they're putting new tools in place to hold employees accountable and transition low performers out of the company. And apparently, according to these new standards, if you're tested on your performance and how you do it, if you're below a certain level, you essentially cannot transfer to any other part of Microsoft for a new job. And in the extreme case, you cannot apply for a job again at Microsoft for 2 years. And it also, I read the letter from the HR department, and it all sounds very anodyne and benign, and we're just trying to help you. we want to help you, we want to help the company, and we want to help the community. And it was exactly the kind of letter that you just know is going to have a punch behind, like an iron fist behind it. And it apparently is being put to use right now. What do you think?
I think this is very common. Look, I used to be owned by
Yeah.
GE, Six Sigma, and all that. This is very common. This is what companies are doing. They really want to cut back and get more lean and mean. So I don't think this is a tech story. I think this is an HR story. And in the same week, Google saying, "Hey, the remote workers have to come back at least 3 days a week." I mean, these companies are saying, "Hey, we know we're hyper successful, but we still want to make changes for some reason to just squeeze a little more efficiency and maybe juice the stock price a little." So that's what they're doing. It's what are you going to do? I mean, this is why people call those stock options golden handcuffs, right?
Yeah, well, and if funny, it wasn't the same criteria was apparently used earlier this year at Microsoft and laid off 2,000 people. And outside of Seattle, I didn't see a lot of coverage of that. So maybe this is just codifying it. But it seems interesting that the company is talking about you're going to be your own boss of your AI. Essentially, you're going to have this agent working with you. They made a big deal out of that, even though Bill Gates said not too long ago, well, basically human beings are going to be replaced over time at Microsoft. So, I mean, which is it? Are they going to make you a hyper performer or die, or are they just going to replace you?
I mean, I think they're exactly one and the same. They're saying, "Hey, you've got to get with the AI thing and you've got to get super good, or we're going to have an AI agent come in and take your job." And that's the big fear, and that's what we're starting to see.
Well,
I'm not saying that
I
this is.
saw Eric Schmidt today in an interview on stage somewhere, essentially saying in 3 to 5 years, uh, AI will be smarter than human beings. So, is this really just whistling in the graveyard? Yeah, you'll keep your job if you can keep up. When in fact, the message is you're not going to have a job because there's not going to be any use for you. We're going to have these devices that are smarter than you.
I mean, for some jobs, that's already happening. I just, AI is a promising thing. It still makes a lot of mistakes. I would argue more mistakes than humans. Companies will replace humans with bots at their own peril and their own risk.
Right.
But they're going to do it. We know that. They're already doing it. And we haven't really seen enough of a turnover to say, the results are being skewed by these bots that are making mistakes. But in an era where we already resent the fact that we can't get people on the phone, real people,
Yeah.
that's going to happen more and more. I mean, companies are downsizing. People are frustrated with X, for example, and X lost what, 80% of its employees. People are frustrated with Tesla because, well, I can't get my car fixed on time or anything like that. And these are eventually things that come home to roost at a company. And, automation has been around forever. And some companies have gone too far and alienated their base. And we'll see if that happens in the future. But it is a fine line that these companies will have to walk with AI.
I still have a sense that we haven't yet encountered that first big catastrophic mistake by AI.
Correct.
And I'm waiting for it. It's sort of like, you know, at the beginning, before World War I, everybody sensed something was coming that was going to be really ugly. And I suspect that at some point in the near future, there's going to be an AI catastrophe where people die or electricity is cut off for tens of millions of people or something. And when that happens, it's going to be interesting to see what the backlash is. Because right now we're saying, yeah, it's inevitable that we're all going to lose our jobs over the next 20 years, and AI and robotics is going to take over. Let's see what happens when that disaster occurs.
Well, I hope you're wrong, but
I hope I'm wrong too. Yeah. Okay. Finally, I read a wild headline in a investor magazine publication, and it caught my attention because it said NVIDIA's 5.5 billion charge, the one just levied by the government last week, is the downturn's start. And in this piece, they argue that NVIDIA is just a few months away from hitting its 1 year mark of market underperformance. That the company crossed the $100 threshold first time in May 24, and with massive volatility, it's stagnated since then. And that this 5.5 billion charge, the company has, the company is down 15% versus 10% for the broader market. And even though year over year, its numbers are still high, quarter to quarter, its numbers are very low. And the argument of this piece is that the company has peaked, that it can't go any faster right now, and it's going to have to consolidate and fall back. And that's going to impact the market as a whole because it's been the bellwether for the last few years. What do you think?
Can it go faster? I think part of the problem is the Trump administration has put one of those boots on the wheels of NVIDIA with these tariffs, literally saying it's going to cost you billions of dollars to do what you used to do, which was sell all your amazing products all over the world. Right. And so I don't know. We may look back on this and it'll last a long time, this tariff thing, or a short time. But this is not just a bump in the road. This is a stop sign. And we're going to start seeing earning reports where people say, hey, because of the tariffs, we couldn't sell as much. That makes sense. That's what tariffs do. They raise prices and slow sales. So, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't it hit the hottest company when it comes to sales and stock price? That all makes sense, but I just don't see a way around it. It feels like we've done it very deliberately, and we should have seen this coming, and now it's here. So what's the surprise?
So how long does the administration have to come out with announcements of tariff deals? I mean, we've seen a long queue of diplomats and even presidents and prime ministers going into the White House to talk tariff deals, but we haven't seen any deals yet. And how long?
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen a long queue at the White House. I've heard that from Donald Trump, but I don't know that I've seen a long queue of presidents in the White House. I think he's talking about that. I think we will hear about many deals because that's how this works. But will they be enough? Will we look back and say we're exactly even tariff and dollar-wise where we were? We're just down 4,000 points in the stock market. Is that something people are willing to accept? I don't know.
Yeah. Can we do it? Can we say that without China? If we cut a deal with all 150 other countries, but China is still the holdout.
I mean, it'll be a new world if we have to think everything from China is 2 and 3 times more expensive. We're going to have to get used to that and adjust to it. But we don't even know yet what we're going to have to adjust to because of all the back and forth. So, sure, we could see some recovery once we know exactly what we're dealing with. The problem right now, if you're an investor in the long term, is you're nervous because you don't know what you have to deal with yet.
Right. We haven't seen the first 100 days of administration this extreme, energetic, I don't know how you characterize it, since at least FDR. And before FDR, there's nothing like this. It's bound to create tremendous, fear. And until that fear gets alleviated, we're going to be in this mess for a while.
I agree.
Okay, that's it for now, folks. You can find us on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. You can see Scott on Facebook and X, and of course, almost every weeknight on NBC Bay Area, except tonight. And you can hear me regularly on the BBC World Radio show Business Matters. We'll We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.